Hey everyone, what's up? What's happening? How has been your Sunday? How has been your Sunday? Let me just turn on the chat, right? You can keep sharing your screen. I don't mind that, so that people can see the screen, topic, speaker. Yeah. All right. I'm seeing the chat. It's slow, relaxing. That's great. That's great. Amazing, amazing. All right, all right, all right. So, by the way, I'm sure some of you might already know me. If you don't know me, then hi guys. This is Uttam Gupta. I'm the first founding member of GrowthSchool, the platform which is hosting and doing this 6-week Web3 program for free, just to teach you and make you guys aware of about the potential of future of Web3, right? And the intent is to make you ready for the future. And this program is made for mainly non-techies. So if you think that you don't understand Web3, don't understand tech, then don't worry. This is a 6-week program, and over the course of 6 weeks, the plan is to have like 24 workshops covering NFTs, DAO, DApps, regulation, taxation, future, everything around in a no jargon free approach, right? Non jargon free approach, so that you can actually understand, right? The intent is not to make you Web3 expert, but to make you understand enough so that you can leverage the opportunities in Web3 going forward, right? So that is the intent, right? I'm just looking at the chat. I love the energy, guys. I love the energy. Thank you so much for being active. Now, before I start and hand over the stage to the speaker, to the mentor of the day, I would request all of you to please turn on your cameras. Please, please, please do that, because in this online setup, the only way for us to engage and interact is through seeing you on camera, right? So please turn on your cameras. No one is going to judge you for your clothes, for your hair. Actually, I appreciate all of you for tuning in today. It's Sunday evening, folks. You could have been anywhere in the world, partying, drinking, chilling, but you chose to come here to learn about fundamentals of cryptocurrency. How cool is that? How powerful is that, right? So really appreciate you for that. But if you can turn on your cameras as well, nothing better than that, right? So it's 8 p.m. right now, and I officially welcome you to the second workshop of the 6-week Web3 program, where there are going to be 22 more workshops, right? And today's workshop is on fundamentals of cryptocurrency, right? And I'm sure you must be having a lot of questions around cryptocurrency. So much is going on in that market, in this space. So today we are going to understand the argument in favor and against of crypto, how to cut through the noise and evaluate investment in cryptocurrencies, where we are headed in this market, right? And you must be having a lot of questions around taxation, legality, and everything around it. Just keep them noted. There is going to be a dedicated Q&A as well in the end, so you will get to ask all your questions, right? Now, who are you going to learn from, right? Very important. You can see the picture of that person in front of you, but the name of that person is Edul Patel, who is the co-founder and CEO of Mudrex, right? And which is a YC backed startup who has recently raised a lot of money, $6.5 million in pre-series A. So you are going to learn from someone who knows his shit, right? And has done enough to teach you today, right? So you are going to learn the real shit, right? So be prepared for that. Now, that was all about the workshop and the mentor who is going to teach you. But before I hand over the screen, few important points. Please keep them noted. Please keep them noted, right? Number one is to make the most out of this session and this workshop. Keep taking notes or screenshots, whatever is possible for you, so that you actively learn and not just keep listening. Because anyways, cryptocurrencies, Web3 is a complex topic. We are going to make it as basic as possible, but if you don't actively learn, you won't be able to understand and follow through things, right? So learn like you used to learn in class while taking notes and screenshot. It will be better. Second is, this is a learning environment, right? So don't drop any links or spam or use any curse words. Don't make the environment negative. If the moderators find you doing that, we are going to remove you, because there are children, women, old people, everyone, every kind of people in this room. So we have to make that and make the environment respectful. Third is, I hope everyone has downloaded the Mudrex app to actually play around and apply your learnings from these sessions, right? You can see the QR code in front of you. If you are not done, quickly download, and you will also get $5 in your wallet so that you can actually experiment and apply your learnings. These folks have been kind enough to do this and give this to all the students in this program. So make sure you leverage that, right? Last thing, very last thing, I'm not going to speak a lot. That was all from my end. Last thing, as we told last time, in every session, there is going to be a challenge, which is if you make a LinkedIn post or a Twitter thread with your learnings from the session, then you are going to get $50 or $100 of crypto or NFT. How cool is that, right? And the winners will be announced in the next session. So today, in the end, we are going to announce the winner of the last session. So stay tuned, stick till the end. You might be the one who have won, right? And if you don't win today, don't lose hope, don't get disheartened, because there are 22 sessions more lined up, so you still have a chance, right? Just make sure you put efforts in making those Twitter threads and posts, right? And use the hashtag GS Web3 and GrowthSchool, right? So that was all from my end, right? Now the stage is all yours, Edul. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Uttam, for having me here. And I am so happy to see this large crowd that's turned up today to talk about and sort of just discuss crypto as such. I've done a bunch of these sessions in the past, and always I've enjoyed kind of sort of keeping it in two parts. One part where we just go through how it all began, what are all the different parts of crypto, answer some top burning questions at the start that I've already heard multiple times, and then actually just jump in and discuss a lot about Q&A. That's basically what I want to do. I know that everyone has a lot of queries, everyone has a lot of questions, and crypto by all means is not a topic that can get covered in a 30-40 minute session. So what I would love to do to make sure that everything is just super productive for everyone is that we can just quickly jump into what are the fundamentals of crypto, what were its origins, why is Web3 important, then talk a bit about the technology and what it enables. And lastly, we'll just jump on to some of the basic questions around NFTs, around DeFi, around investing, and so on and so forth. Okay. So yeah, let's get started, guys. And of course, feel free to punch in questions in chat. Like you guys, I am also taking notes as right here. So if I find something unique and interesting, I'll just punch in and answer that question right away. But otherwise, we just do it at the end of the session. But my aim is to keep this as interactive as possible and as conversational as possible, right? Yeah, so let me just quickly share my screen and we can get started from there. Great. So yeah, guys, today we're going to talk about the fundamentals of crypto. And there are a bunch of fundamentals that we'll try and cover today. Quickly telling you about Mudrex and my story. We've been around in the crypto space for the last 4.5-5 years. Actually ended up purchasing my first Bitcoin way back in 2013, or at least attempting to purchase my first Bitcoin in 2013. Unfortunately, sold it 2 weeks later. So didn't really make anything out of it. But got to learn a lot in that process. And a lot of those learnings have been inspired into what we built out now. So let's actually get onto it right away. And before we jump into everything about crypto, let's just talk about what's going on in general as such in the space, right? Like the internet is now about 20-25 years old, and over the last 2-3 decades, the internet itself has evolved and shown us different phases around how it's structured, right? Very early on, when the internet started off, the internet was all about just sharing of information and making information more and more accessible. The unfortunate reality was that information was spread across everywhere. So there were these platforms or directories that came up to just collect organize and store information in one place and make it available for you, right? And this was broadly Web 1. Web 1 was where platforms would create value by collecting information, storing it, and making it available in a directory. These platforms would try and distribute themselves to wherever they can, and as a result, acquire users from there. And because the platforms were creating value and the platforms were doing the job of distribution, they captured value really, really well, right? Like Amazon, eBay, and Google Ads early on are classic examples of how this happened in like the phase 1 of the internet, right? Like, and of course, this Web 1 kind of approach has now scaled up immensely. And today, this is like the most understood way of kind of sort of running your business on the web, right? And hundreds and thousands of folks who are running their own websites, their own e-commerce stores, their own kind of sort of WordPress blogs, and so on and so forth, understand this really, really well. So Web 1 has gone through its evolution cycle, is very well understood and has scaled up, right? Sometime around 2005, 7, 8, around the time, when Friendster and so on and so forth got started, we started to see Web 2. And the idea of Web 2 was broadly that, okay, the amount of information in the world is just immensely high. And platforms can't do the job of collecting all information by themselves. So just the simple, plain idea was that, can you create a platform where people can come and demonstrate and put in information by themselves? And as a result, what started to happen was that newer and newer platforms started to get created where users would come in and put in information. And as a result, that's how they would be able to create value. Platforms would do the job of distributing that information. The distribution part still remained with the platform. And unfortunately, what ended up happening was that in a lot of cases, the platforms ended up capturing way more value than what went to the user. And classic examples of this are essentially platforms like Facebook, Instagram, where you as a user create content, publish content, the platform does the job of distributing content, but the platform monetizes and makes money. There are actually other examples of this as well. Like, for example, Wikipedia is a great example of a Web 2 company where they created a platform where anyone could come and publish information. That information would be curated and reference checked and created. Wikipedia did the job of distributing this information. And in Wikipedia's case, actually, there is no capture of value. It's a not-for-profit organization just created to make sure that everything just grows in scale. Right? So Web 2 is now this second way of creating an information distribution platform on the internet. Right? Like your Web 1 was directory, platform creates, platform distributes, platform captures value. Web 2 was user creates, platform distributes, but platform captures value. And what has started to happen more and more and more over the last decade is that just because the penetration of internet has expanded and platforms have become more and more and more kind of sort of these front layers where people can continue to create and add more and more information, these users have started to feel, and more of us have started to feel, that if we are putting in time, energy, and effort in creating information and creating value for the platform, there should be a way for us to capture value back, right? And that broadly is the idea of Web3, that platforms exist as places where users can come in and create value. Platforms do the job of distributing that product and distributing value. Users are able to capture value for what they have created. The platform also gets a fair share for the distribution that it did, right? So that's the idea of Web3. The idea of Web3 is to break down and separate distribution and separate content creation and separate the value that each and every one gets attributed for it. Right? And that's broadly what Web3 is. Mind you, Web 1 to Web 2 to Web 3 is not like an eventual phase. So it's not like every Web 1 company has to become a Web 2 company, every Web 2 company has to become a Web 3 company. These are kind of different phases in which the internet is evolving as more and more use cases are coming up, as penetration of the internet becomes higher and higher, and as bandwidth and so on and so forth are problems that get solved world over. So the Web 1 model is the most understood model. The Web 2 model has been fairly well understood over the last 8, 10, 12 years. People have figured out how to monetize, how to build businesses, and how to scale them up. The Web 3 model is something that is now coming up. and coming up rapidly, right? So the important part over here is that this Web3 model enables us as creators of value over the internet to capture value better. And that I think is like the most important part that you want to understand in terms of how the internet is evolving. Having said that, this is not easy to do. Capturing value is not easy to do because value equals wealth. In some cases, it equals money. And both of that requires high levels of trust to solve for. In that case, let's actually spend about 5-10 minutes talking about what money really is and what value really means, and why is it important. And as a result, why doing Web3 in like a democratized way was really difficult till now. Okay. Yeah. So quickly taking like a short step, let's just talk about what value is, right? Like value is ideally what you create and own, and ideally it is something that grows or changes and hopefully grows for the positive over time, and as a result continues to increase as time progresses. Right? And there are very simple examples of this, right? We create value every single day by working in our organizations, by participating in content consumption and content discourse over the internet. We create value every single day by, let's say, giving our attention over Google and so on and so forth, right? A lot of this value is taken up by the platforms and not by us. Even in some cases where it is, like for example, when we are creating value in our jobs, a lot of times this value compensation we receive in the form of money, whereas money is something that doesn't compound, jabki the wealth that you've created for the company actually compounds and grows over time. The reason why I say it compounds is because you build something, someone else builds something on top, then someone else builds something on top, and it continues to grow, right? So we create value every single day. This value added to the world compounds, but more often than not, if we are ever compensated, we are compensated in terms of money. But money really doesn't compound. So what you own and how can you capture value that you've created in a non-monetary way is literally the crux of Web3 approach. You guys might think of it this way कि यार मैं value add कर रहा हूँ, पैसा मिल रहा है, तो मतलब isn't it working that way, right? And that's actually a very important thing for us to talk about as well, that money is actually not value. Money is just the instrument of value transfer. Okay. It doesn't mean that you are capturing value. It is just meaning that the value you are capturing is being transferred to someone else. It is just a medium of interchange. Whereas wealth or value is a medium of value stored. And there are actually 2-3 very interesting properties why money is important in all cases, right? Like money is important is because money is stable in the short term. Like the INR is stable in the short term, and that helps you buy eggs, groceries, milk at your local store, pays for the petrol bills and in your bike, and of course helps you purchase items and gives you some predictability of how things will move in the future. Right? Whereas most stores of value and wealth are actually very unstable in the short term. Gold price is very volatile. Equities are very volatile. Most of your value store in any shape or form will actually be very volatile in the short term, which means that their prices today versus their prices tomorrow will be different. Having said that, the part that is useful is that money is inflationary and more often than not decreases in the long term, whereas wealth is deflationary and more often than not increases in the long term. And that's where they are different. And that I think is the crux of it. Money is short-term stable, long-term inflationary. Wealth is short-term unstable, long-term deflationary. And that I think is very, very key for us to understand. Because what we more often than not do is that we park a lot of our wealth in cash or in money or in things like FD. Whereas actually in reality, what's happening is that inflation is eating away at it slowly and steadily, and your wealth is getting eroded slowly and steadily. Now, of course, this was important, and this was important more and more and more in a world where you could not interchange your wealth into money very easily. Right? For example, if you have a house and you wanted to go and buy eggs, it's not like you're going to go to sell the entire house, take that money, buy eggs, and then repurchase a part of the house. Right? Like that's a difficult transaction to make. or for that matter, if you had gold, or if you had stocks, or if you had anything like that, if you wanted to make your wealth liquid, you would have to spend time, energy, and effort, and you would need to find buyers who would be willing to give you the right price or the right proportion of it. And the reality is that the reason why we need a lot of money is because there is a lot of illiquidity in our wealth. And Web3 at the core also tries to solve for this. What it tries to solve for is that as the internet expands and grows and becomes available to more and more and more people, information about what is valuable and what is not, how much it is valuable, and how someone can purchase that particular thing from you in a short-term way becomes more and more and more accessible. That by definition means that more and more and more things that are illiquid become liquid. And if things are becoming liquid, you should ideally start storing less and less and less of your net worth in money and more and more and more in wealth, because wealth is what compounds and grows over the longer run. I think this is a very, very critical piece for us to understand, because wealth is not money. Money is stable in the short term, wealth is unstable in the short term. Money is inflationary in the long term, its value decreases. Wealth is ideally deflationary in the long term, its value increases, right? But there's also one more very critical piece along with money and wealth, which is that to enforce ownership of money and wealth or value, we enter into contracts with entities that we need to trust. Like, your money is only worth anything as long as the government of India is willing to accept it, right? Or as long as hundreds of people are willing to accept it. Like, every 100 rupee note has a particular statement, or every note for that matter has a statement that says that where the central bank, where the RBI governor says that they're promising to pay the bearer of that note some money back for it, right? So every note that you have is literally a contract, and you've entered into that contract with the RBI because you trust the RBI, right? Very similarly, your ownership of, let's say, land or gold or stocks and so on and so forth is enforced by contracts that you enter into by the entities that you trust. Like, for example, the entities like SEBI that you trust for your stocks, or again, the government of India that you trust with your land, and so on and so forth, right? And that actually is critical. Because of these intermediary entities, trust is a necessary requirement for money to stay liquid and value to grow, right? And here inherently is the problem. If you go back and take the example of Web 2, people essentially trusted platforms like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and many of these social platforms to be able to, in a fair way, distribute value. But the reality is that that didn't happen, which is why we wanted to figure out a way where we can enforce ownership of value, enforce value transfer without there needing to be these central entities who you trust. And that literally is a problem. We need to have trusted entities so that we can enforce ownership. This need for having trusted entities limits our ability to transact in a global internet and a global connected world. And this need for trust makes the world inefficient. And that actually is the other core of Web3. What Web3 also tries to do is that the technology of blockchain that helps Web3 become successful literally is trying to remove trust. When you remove trust, the thesis is that reduces the number of intermediaries required, which makes the world more efficient from a transaction perspective, helps you manage movements from money to wealth in a more simpler way, and helps you grow that wealth in the longer run. So yeah, that is what Web3 is. Web3 is an attempt to rethink our world. It's an attempt to rethink our world without the need of these trusted intermediaries. And ideally, if we remove these trusted intermediaries, we would bring efficiency in value capture, value storage, and value transfer. And it's literally rethinking our world for the age of the internet. That's broadly what the Web3 movement is about. It is as much a technological movement as it is a philosophical and societal movement as well. You're trying to rethink the world without these trusted entities existing. So yeah, so I think now that we've dealt with all the philosophy, we can get that out of the way. Let's actually talk about what's really going on. Like you guys might have heard a lot of times that blockchain is the technology that helps Web3 grow. It helps remove trust from the system. And I'm today not going to talk about the blockchain technology as such, but what I'm going to try to do is explain as easily as possible as to what the technology does, rather than how it does it. There are multiple articles and multiple videos already set up on how it works. But let's at the core, at the fundamental level, try and understand why does it work, or what does it try and do so that it works. So yeah, the reality, of course, is that blockchains are not the answer to everything. And Web3 is not the answer to everything. And before we, just end up talking randomly about what blockchains are, sidechains are, let's actually try and understand what is a blockchain. And I think the simplest way in which I've been able to phrase what blockchain is that blockchain is literally just an accounting book. You might have seen those Chalu khatas or accounting ledgers and so on and so forth that accountants in every company used to tally around, or for that matter, what are tally entries, or for that matter, what an Excel entry is, or for that matter, what a splitwise is, such that you guys would use. Blockchain is just like that. It is an accounting book that has a list of entries of something and the amount and who owns that something. That's basically what it is. An entry book that says that who owns what amount of something. That's broadly what blockchain is. As I said, I'm not going to cover how it works, but just assume that the enforcement of entries into this blockchain are protected by technology, are protected by code, and if an entry is added into this accounting book, it is final. And this finality is actually very, very important, because as soon as an entry in this accounting book becomes final and it is enforceable by code, it is very difficult for someone to erase it. And if this global public accounting book is what everyone is referring to, then ownership gets solved, right? Because everyone is referring to this book to get to know who is owning what amount of something, right? Which now actually brings us to what cryptocurrencies are. The something that we track on a blockchain are cryptocurrencies. That's basically it. You've got a blockchain, you use it as an accounting book to track a lot of things, and that's something that you track on a blockchain is a cryptocurrency. It can take multiple shapes and forms. For example, it can be a literal currency, like for example, BTC, ETH, and now we are tracking USDT, USDC, and so on and so forth on top of the blockchain. It can be equity in a company, and many folks are trying to do literal equity shares on blockchain. And for that matter, ICOs and governance tokens are again great examples of equity in a company. It is right to govern a project, which is exactly what we are seeing these days with the rise of governance tokens inside of crypto. So who has what vote and what share to decide what does a project do is something that can be tracked. It can be used to track ownership of land, or for that matter, it can even be used to track number of potatoes being grown on a farm. Broadly, cryptocurrencies are just something that gets tracked on a blockchain. The blockchain is global, it's public, it's enforced by code, and it's really hard to crack. That open, public, enforced by code, and really hard to crack blockchain removes the need for there having an intermediary entity that enforces trust, that enforces ownership. And that is the gist of it. Blockchain is an accounting book where you track things. Cryptocurrency is the thing that you track on a blockchain. Right? So the obvious question then is that what is Bitcoin, right? And unlike Dilbert here, I'm not going to go into depth and make you understand from the history of civilization. But let's take a quick short note and understand what really Bitcoin is. Just as I said earlier, cryptocurrency is a thing that you track on a blockchain. So let's assume that you created an accounting book and then you created a currency on top of it. And you said that that currency is always fixed. Like the eventual end number of this currency is always going to be fixed. And if more and more people want it, more and more people need to try to mine it or get it by buying and selling. So ideally, if the supply is fixed and the demand goes up, the price of Bitcoin should ideally go up. The reality is that as the demand goes up and as more and more people start to use it, the price of Bitcoin tends to become more and more stable. It tends to become more and more flatter, and it continues to grow, right? So Bitcoin is the attempt to actually rethink how a currency in the age of the internet would work, right? A currency that is not susceptible to whims and fancies of a government, a currency that is open public and where all information is transparent, a currency where ownership is enforced by code which enforces trust, a currency where the larger the network, the more reliable it becomes. And as more and more uses, the more valuable it becomes and the more stable it becomes, right? And that's what really Bitcoin is. It is an attempt to rethink how a new currency can be created in the age of the internet. And we've seen many forms of currencies in the past, from gold to copper and silver coins to paper notes. And now in the latest format, digital, essentially rupees and so on and so forth, that are already out there. Bitcoin is an attempt to rethink that without having the trusted intermediary of the government and of the central bank to be in place, right? That's actually what really Bitcoin is. But as I said, there are more things that you can track on crypto, right? For example, there is something this something called as an NFT, right? Like, and just like Bitcoin is something generic that can be tracked on the blockchain, you can actually also track unique things on the blockchain. And an NFT, or as they say, a non-fungible token, is actually a special type of cryptocurrency that is unique, which means that there is only a limited number and every one of them is different from others, right? Unlike a Bitcoin, one Bitcoin is the same as any other Bitcoin, is same as any other Bitcoin. But one Bored Ape is different from another Bored Ape, is different from another Bored Ape, and all of them have different value. And actually, the reality of life is that we have more unique things in the world than generic things, right? So NFT tries to help us kind of sort of account for and map unique things on the blockchain. This uniqueness is actually particularly useful in case you want to track something that's of where uniqueness adds value, right? Like, for example, art is something where uniqueness adds value. Your rights in content is something where uniqueness adds value. Or for that matter, your personal high school degree is something important where uniqueness adds value, right? Like your degree is different from everyone else's. So just like how Bitcoin is a generic cryptocurrency, the class of NFTs are these unique cryptocurrencies that are being kind of sort of accounted for and tracked over the internet, right? So yeah, what the hell is DeFi then? And think of it this way: like we've covered what blockchain is, what cryptocurrencies is. We've seen what Bitcoin does and how it is generic and where genericness adds value, and what NFT does and how it's unique and where uniqueness adds value. DeFi is this parallel movement that's going on inside crypto, where it's an effort to rethink the entire financial system. Okay? Today, the entities that we trust the most are our financial entities, right? We trust our banks, we trust our insurer, we trust our credit agency, we trust our broker, we trust our exchange. Having said that, every single one of them, in all of those cases, there are failures that we've seen again and again, right? Like central banks print too much money. Banks default and die away. Lenders default on their loans. Credit ratings are misappropriated. Exchanges allow people to front run. Brokers use money that you've parked for some other purposes. Insurance agents don't give you back your insurance, right? So there is this breach of trust that continues to happen again and again and again. And DeFi is the attempt to rethink and rebuild how our critical financial services can be rebuilt in a trustless way over the internet, right? And broadly, what's happening is that financial services like wealth, savings, credit, payments, insurance, all of these are being rebuilt in different forms. We in Compound are trying to rebuild lending and borrowing. Multiple different DeFi protocols are trying to rethink savings. There are many folks trying to assess credit. Of course, payments is the basic use case of crypto, and insurance is still just coming up, right? So a lot of these things are being rebuilt on crypto, but the fact is that the core technology now works. It's being tested at relative scale, and that's what's happening. It's really scaling up. So DeFi is just this attempt to rethink and rebuild our entire financial system using blockchain as the core technology and removing these trusted intermediaries that end up, failing sometimes. So yeah, now coming on to the interesting question, that how all of us can really make wealth by doing all of this. And see, broadly, there are three ways in which you can participate into Web3 and actually genuinely create wealth doing this, right? The first way is, of course, you can just end up trading. It is just like how equities move or commodities move or currencies move. Cryptocurrencies that account for value that people have created on a particular blockchain, they are volatile and they move. And as a result, if you have done your own research and if you go deeper into understanding why is the price X, if you go deeper into doing your research and understanding where will it go to and try and also assess how it can grow, you should be trading actively. And I say that trading actively is really difficult because what you're trying to do is you're trying to make decisions almost on a hourly, daily, and so on and so forth basis. And it really takes the time, energy, and effort out of your life into just going and doing active trading. Right? So the other thing that you can do is that you can literally invest passively, and you can invest in products for the longer run, just like how you buy individual stocks. This is now an order of magnitude easier job because what you are wanting to do is you are saying that, okay, in the longer run, I believe these tokens or these themes and these sectors can help you create wealth, just like how investing in a mutual fund can help you create. And at Mudrex, we are working really hard on building products to solve for this particular segment for the users. Because as such, what's happening is that the retail market in crypto is exploding. It's grown from 0 to about 65% of market share in the last 3 years. So more and more folks are wanting to invest passively. Right? And of course, the last thing that you can do, and in my opinion, this actually is the most valuable, is you can contribute. You can contribute to Web3 projects. You can genuinely create value. And as a result of that value creation, earn tokens. Be a part of communities, help them grow. And as a result, you get those tokens and grow in value by yourself. And all of these take different amounts of time, energy, and effort. Trading actively is a full-time job. Contributing can be a part-time job. Investing passively can be close to zero effort job if you're wanting to do it for the longer run. The upside that you make, a lot ends up depending on the amount of time, energy, and effort you're willing to invest in doing these things, right? And of course, the one very common question that I get in the last few days is that we are in the middle of a bear run. How do you think we'll create value in all of this, right? And I think what I would love to remind is that and sort of market cycles, bull and bear, are consequences of monetary policy, interest and debt cycles. Today, we are 6 months into a period where crypto is consolidating. And so that bear markets are actually great, irrespective of how you wanted to create wealth, right? Like, because if you are a trader, you still get a lot of volatility, and that's okay. Using that volatility, you'll be able to make wealth. If you're an investor, bear markets are actually a great time to invest for the longer run because you're getting things that you appreciate and think and know will grow in value at significant discounts. And of course, if you're a contributor, then there is no better time to go out and build things in Web3 than a bear market, because now people are trying to do genuine stuff and not just bullshit around. And bear markets are periods when you can literally separate the hype from the utility for a lot of these things. So yeah, so that's kind of sort of a rapid fire flow through a lot of these things, and we can actually just jump into questions, guys. And maybe with these questions, hopefully we can go into much deeper about crypto and blockchain, and I can try and answer some other fundamental questions that you might have regarding cryptocurrency.
Awesome. So folks, that was like extremely valuable, Edul. Like I have genuinely never tried to understand that way. You simplified it so well that I was actually taking notes. Like you can see on that I was doing that. So that was amazing. Folks, I have dropped the Q&A link in the chat, right? Put your questions there. Edul, you can also go using that link and try to answer the most relevant questions which can serve most of the people.
Sure. So I'm just opening Slido up and let's just please see what folks are asking.
Yeah.
Okay, a ton of questions into it already, right? Yeah, let's take a bunch of them up. So let's just start from whatever is there on the top. And folks, please upvote for the things that you want to read up more, because that gives me feedback and helps me understand what should I answer. So let's take the most popular question first. Uzair is asking, how does DeFi affect economic aspects of a country with respect to traditional finance system? That's actually a great question. That's a great question, Uzair. So as I said, DeFi is this thought process of how do you rebuild the financial system using blockchain. And when you talk about rebuilding the financial system, it's important to understand what part of the financial system you want to rebuild and who is doing the rebuilding. And let's take an example in two ways in which this can work out. And let's take the example of India itself. And just to simplify, let's talk about two different kinds of currencies, right? On the one end, there is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is self-sovereign, which means that there's no one who's controlling it. There is a finite amount of Bitcoin that can exist, and Bitcoin can be accessed by everyone. Now, all of these properties are great, but this can be detrimental if, let's say, if we were wanting to use Bitcoin as the currency for India by default. The reason why it would be detrimental is because suddenly your monetary policy is out of hand. You no longer have control and the ability to modulate debt and credit. And as a result, either inflation or recession can happen just because someone else impacted this a lot. So as a result, not everything needs to move to the blockchain, right? Sovereignty and monetary policy is very important to a country, and that probably will stay inside the country. And as a result, what will likely happen is that many countries will come up with CBDCs. And that's another thing that you would have heard a lot, right? Central bank digital currencies. See, the power or the point of blockchain is that it makes things open and accessible and trusted. Imagine a UPI ledger where all transactions were open and available and verifiable if you gave permission. Wouldn't that be incredibly powerful? Imagine a company that's wanting to give you credit. They would be able to give you credit based on your transaction history across the UPI stack. Now, that's such a powerful idea, and something like that can be also done via CBDC, and that fair and square falls under like the DeFi policy, right? Very similarly, stocks can be moved to the blockchain where we can remove intermediaries like NSDL and CDSL, and as soon as they are on the blockchain where they are run by SEBI, verified by SEBI, you get instantaneous transactions, instantaneous settlement, access and availability to stocks in near real-time basis, 24/7 markets, and so on and so forth, none of which exists today. Like we have today in the stock market, T+1 settlement, or in some cases T+3 settlements. Your price guarantee is affected because of how your brokers go out and execute orders, and you don't have portability of your stocks, or it is actually really difficult to port your stocks away from one broker to the other, because you have specific demat accounts that are locked with the broker, right? And blockchain for stocks, governed by SEBI, can solve for it. So there are two aspects of I think the question that you have. DeFi can really help the economical aspects of a country while staying very close to traditional finance. The only difference being is that who controls it is different, and how do you trust and what do you trust is different, right? Then Naman is asking actually a very interesting question. How NFT duplicates cannot exist? How can someone not copy an NFT created by someone else which is already present? Oh, of course, Naman, anyone can copy it, right? For that matter, anyone can just repaint the Mona Lisa as well. But you know that the original Mona Lisa is in the Louvre. And in fact, actually, a lot of you guys don't know this, but the Mona Lisa that's shown to everyone in public is not the real Mona Lisa. The real Mona Lisa is locked up in the safe vault inside. So yes, of course, art can be very easily copied. The point is that in case, even if it is copied, how do you make sure and verify that this is the original art? And how do you, as a result, value that originality is, and that ownership is locked up in the blockchain? So of course, anyone can copy a board ape and put that up as their WhatsApp pic, right? But that doesn't mean they own that board ape. Your ownership is enforced separately, and ownership has lots of other value as well. And let me give you a very simple example. Let's say board apes become very liquid in the future, right? And let's say someone is wanting to buy or sell a portion of your board ape at different frequency. So you can literally lock up your board ape as collateral, take out a loan against it, pay that up, and repay that loan, unlock your board ape. Now, this is not something that a copy of a board ape will be able to do, right? And that's the difference. The ownership is the difference. Of course, it's copyable. Everything in the world, every art in the world it already is being, except that today, the art that is copied is really hard to distinguish that art from the real art, or for that matter, those unique products as such in general. And that is what is being trying to solve by NFTs, bringing authority of ownership in a public, transparent way so that it's available to everyone. Right? Abhishek says, can we have the presentation, please? Of course, Abhishek, I'll try and share that. Yas is asking if Web3 is something that democratizes stuff and distributes power. Why would institutions holding power want to promote and adopt it? Yash, you've touched on a very philosophical nerve now. You are actually right. If there are institutions holding on to power, they would not want to give away power. But the reality is that today, most of our institutions are powerful because a democracy supports them. And the job of the institution is to move forward the will of the people. So the real reason why the transition will happen is because a vast majority of people do believe that this is the right way to do it. And this is what will help progress. This is what will make things efficient. And as a result, institutions will by themselves move forward, right? See, institutions have power, but really power is in the hands of the people. And the ability that people vote to bring institutions into power makes sure that that power is used for the best and most efficient thing in the long run. So power struggles are natural and power movements are natural, and Web3 democratizes stuff and brings more efficiency. And it is because of that democratization and because of that efficiency that more and more people will want for things to move it in that front. And as a result, institutions will likely adopt. This is something that will take years. Societal changes take generations. Technology changes take just a few months in a lot of cases. So you'll start seeing things being implemented on Web3 years before they get adopted and become mainstream, because those will require institutional changes. Those will require the masses to start believing, and those will require for these products to actually start adding value in the life of the average person. That's where the power struggle really is. Not with the institutions, but in making life better for the average person. Yeah. Vibhor is asking, are there any resources on Mudrex where we can get started on the basis of crypto? Yeah, Vibhor, we actually have a lot of stuff ready. And in fact, we are working on launching a completely free kind of sort of educational resource, an academy of sorts that anyone can access and get to once it gets out in like the next couple of weeks or so. We'll be sharing it with Uttam and the GrowthSchool team so that they can distribute it with all of you. It's public, it's free. We've spent, I think, more than 6 months of lots of effort in writing 200, 300, 400 articles, and we are making it available to everyone, and we don't even have the Mudrex name on it. So I think it should be useful to you. Then there is Kanan, who's asking, how can asset management insurance service be made available using crypto DeFi? Insurance guys will still come for claim assessment. What will be the value? What value will asset managers add to DeFi? Great question, Kanan. And actually, the world is still open, because if we did have clear answer, you would have large asset managers already onto crypto. And in the same way, the large insurance agents already onto crypto. But both of these are hard problems to solve. And let's take the examples of both one by one. Let's talk about one simple use case where insurance can become an easier accessible part on crypto, right? Like, let's say today you apply for a health insurance. That health insurance and comes with a certain set of clauses, and you pay a certain premium for it. And in case you need to claim that, you submit for a claim. Today, the insurance agency is the agency that's going to pay you if you default. They take your premium and invest it in multiple places to make money out of it. And the insurance agency has agents who verify your claim. Now, how ridiculous is that, right? Like, the insurance agency is the one taking money. The insurance agency is the one supposed to pay you out. And it is the insurance agency that decides whether you get paid or not. And the reality is that the reason why a lot of insurance agencies make money is because a lot of claims go unclaimed. That is because the process is either just too hard, or the insurance agents are biased, or that the information that you needed while you were buying the insurance was not transparently told to you, right? Because there are pervasive incentives for the system to act in that way. Now, if you wanted to rebuild insurance on crypto, what you would want to make sure is that the premium that you are paying is put in a pool that is backed by a certain number of people who are willing to take the bet, saying that this particular event will not happen in your life. They are able to calculate that premium and tell you, and the money that they are putting in is locked. The assessment of your claim is not done by these people who've put in money in the pool, but by third-party independent folks. Those third-party independent folks are paid by the protocol or the system to verify claims that you make. And the reality is that if they fail to pass a genuine claim, they are kind of sort of adversely compensated or penalized. In the same way, if they pass an incorrect claim, they are penalized. So their incentives are aligned to make sure that the claimant is able to get the claim based on what was agreed in the insurance contract. So the reality is that the operators still remain the same. There is an entity, there is someone paying money, there is someone validating and verifying it, but their incentives get more aligned. And that is how you need to think of it as well, right? A lot of DeFi is not going to happen automatically. At the end of the day, the reality is that humans and their problems will still remain the same. This is just a different way of doing it. And hopefully a way that aligns incentives better, that makes things more efficient, and because of that efficiency, cheaper and more accessible to a much, much, much larger audience. And I can take a similar example for asset management as well. The use case here is different and not how you would traditionally think of a DeFi use case. Yes. Then we have Keshav. Keshav is saying that DeFi is unregulated and cannot be regulated. KYC and AML is issues. Don't you think that it will not be very healthy for finance and government authority is needed when transparency? What is your view on it? Actually, I kind of sort of agree with you, Keshav, a lot. And that KYC and AML is a really important missing piece of the puzzle for DeFi to grow and scale. because trust is really important when you are trying to do anything in finance. And without there being verifiable identity, there is no way to enforce. There's no way to enforce, or there is no way to penalize as such at scale for our users, especially in doing things like giving credit. And to solve for this, what will necessarily need to come up over time are ways in which your identity can be uploaded to the blockchain. They can be locked so that it's not accessible to everyone. And entities that you give permission to get access to it directly and are able to consume it for the purpose that they wanted. And once they've consumed, access goes away. And that's the part that's important. KYC ML will be important, just how it's done will change. It's not like KYC ML will be held by entities forever, they'll have to maintain it. Your KYC documents will be there on a separate chain, locked, accessible only to you. Entities who want it will be able to access limited amounts of information from it, verify the things that they require, and once verified, move ahead, because that's literally what they want, right? They don't really want to know your name. They want to know whether you are a verifiable, trusted person or not. And that's where the difference is. The way to solve for on DeFi, or what we want to do, is solve for verifiability and not solve for access to information. And that's a large problem to solve. And that's actually one of the things that's preventing DeFi from really rapidly scaling up and really rapidly growing. Because without identity, you can't do credit. Without credit, which is a fundamental building block, a lot of the other use cases can't get built. And that is critical, a piece of puzzle to solve as well. Great. Now let's move on. Sai Murli Krishnan saying how to create an own NFT. Creating is really easy. You have now multiple platforms to do it. In fact, you can just go to OpenSeas and create one if you wanted. And for that matter, there are hundreds of tools now that exist to create your NFT. All you need to do is just create your art, upload it. The platform will verify whether there is plagiarism or not. And if it is unique, boom, that's it. You create it, you mint it, you store it. Fairly straightforward. Should actually be done in 5 minutes. For that matter, actually creating your own cryptocurrency is also very straightforward. You can literally do it in 5 minutes. Yeah, Ashish is asking, why is the 10,000 NFT art like on OpenSea trending so much? What value does it give? Ashish, this is a fairly generic question, not only linked with NFT, but actually linked more with how art functions in itself, right? Like the price of anything or the value of anything is actually in the eyes of the buyer. The reason why a lot of people value certain art, either because of rarity or because they feel an emotional connect with it, or because they just want a higher social status that's associated with that art. It's really hard to quantify why art is valued at something, but the part that is important to understand is that the value that art adds is not transactional value, but social, emotional, self-being value. And that value is very different and it's very, very hard to quantize. And that value might be very different for you versus for me. Like, for example, I might not value Mona Lisa at all, but I might value the original Bitcoin white paper, if there is an original, significantly more, right? And that's the difference. Value is in perception. And as long as someone is willing to pay price, you have a market for it. And whoever someone is willing to pay is the price of that product. That's basically what is. There is no real transactional value in art. It's more an emotional, a self-realizational, and a social value that art brings to life. Yeah, let's go further down. Can we get the presentation, please? Yes, of course you can. We'll be sharing it separately. Can we block if terrorists is using NFT? Tanmay, the reality is that KYC and AML needs to be implemented by platforms who are wanting to buy and sell NFTs. And that can be done and will eventually get done as time progresses and as more and more folks start doing trading and interchange and exchange of NFTs. And as I discussed just a few minutes ago, KYC and AML will become a critical building block, and identity will become a critical building block, because more and more verifiability will be required.
Edul, there are a few interesting questions that our team has also marked. You can also start taking questions from here.
Sure, like happy to do. Where are these?
You should be able to see on my screen. I have started sharing my screen.
Yeah, absolutely. So go ahead, Uttam. You can just pick one and I can answer.
When will India become like other countries where pizza shops accept BTC?
This is actually a very interesting question. This is important because it is important to understand what a currency is. And in India, only the government of India has the sovereign right to define what a currency is. That actually is not true in the US. Like in the US, anyone can say that, okay, this is my currency and I'm printing it. It won't be accepted everywhere, but in some cases it will. And the reality is that this is most likely never going to happen. Like literally never going to happen. Because you can't actually use anything apart than the INR to buy goods and services in India. Like for example, you can't take a gold bar and give a gold bar to an owner and say that, okay, give me like tons of pizzas, right? Like that is not legally allowed because of the sovereign nature of the country and how we define what a currency is. The definition of a currency is different everywhere. In the US, it's open. In most places, there is a finite list of things that can be used for interchange and exchange of value. And I'm very happy that you're a proud Mudrex user as well. Then Yash has a very interesting question as well. Apart from developing UX, UI, writing content, what are other ways of contributing in Web3? Yash, I'm so glad that you brought this question up because I think one of the very important things that I wanted to talk about in my presentation is talk about DAOs and how decentralized autonomous organizations can be structured. So think of it this way, that a DAO is nothing but a company that is organized in a way where value addition and distribution is fairly well divided. So just like how in a company you have the marketing team, the growth team, the tech team, the kind sort of business development team, and so on and so forth. Assume that as DAOs grow and as more and more entities and more projects start being built on Web3, there will be these individual specialized requirements that will come up. Now, some of these requirements might become obsolete. Like, for example, the need to have maybe an accountant of how the finances of the DAO are maintained might become obsolete because they are public and available on the ledger. But maybe there will still need to be the need of an HR. And that HR is who we would call, let's say, a community moderator in the world of Web3, right? Or you might need a business development guy who might go out and head partnerships. Or you, as you said, might need content folks to write content and spread the word. You might need UI, UX, and tech folks to build things out. And really the way you would want to think of it is that everything that is required for companies will also be required for communities. In almost all cases, their names will be different, the titles will be different, and the value they add might be different, and how they add might be different, but they will still be required. So you might want to think of what skill you have and how you bring that skill to the table, and then go and talk to DAOs that actually need that skill. It's literally that the beauty of Web3 is that if you're a contributor, you have skill, you should be able to contribute and get value for that skill back. Right? Yeah, let's take the next question now. Tushar is asking something. Why in Web3 only users are getting to capture value? I believe value should be captured by platforms. That is absolutely true, Tushar. It is not that only users capture value. Platforms do capture value. Just how platforms lock that value in is different. And let me give you an example. With a lot of lending borrowing protocols, a part of the interest that you do in lending borrowing goes to the platform treasury, where then the treasury uses that money for the development of the protocol. Right? And that is one way in which platforms are capturing value. They have a treasury where this money gets parked into, that is used for the development of the protocol itself, for getting users itself, for paying salaries, and so on and so forth. Right? Of course, a lot of value capture happens for early folks of the protocol, which is well and fine. But platforms do end up capturing value. The way you would want to think of it is that whether that value capture is fair or not. And let me give you a very simple example. When Uniswap started, Uniswap said that we will keep 30% of our tokens and the rest 70% we'll distribute to everyone. And those tokens will get value or will be able to get the trading fee benefits that are happening on Uniswap. Now, for a lot of people, this was fair. They felt that Uniswap folks were putting in a lot of value, so 30% was fair. But then along the way came SushiSwap, says that we will do exactly what Uniswap does, just take 10% of the value. And then suddenly a lot of transaction volume started to move to SushiSwap, where people believed that the SushiSwap model was the better model. So what crypto enables is this very easy, simple transfer, while trying to make sure that whether the value that platforms are capturing is acceptable or not. Today, the problem is that if Uber tries to take 30% of your cut, people feel that it's unreasonable. Or if Apple and Google try and take 30% from every transaction, people feel that they are unreasonable and they are locked in. There is no other way, or there are no other alternatives. What crypto solves for is this, that there are alternatives. Okay, Nikhil said that when Edul mentioned about having a reliable set of networks for crypto to work, how is it different to traditional way in which we are using it? Or DeFi an example of insurance, how will damage control be managed? So it's a very interesting question, right? And I'll try and answer question 2, and hopefully the way I answer that answers question 1 itself. So for the insurance example, what did I say? That today there is the insurance company that does the job of taking your money, does the job of investing and parking that out, and then does the job of managing your claim as well. In like a DeFi variant of an LIC company, what would happen was that there would be individuals who would be incentivized to go out and sell insurance to people, and they would have to, let's say, stake some tokens that they would need to buy. There would be other set of claim verifiers who would be able to verify claims, and they would also have to stake certain tokens that they buy. And let's say you submitted a claim, someone incorrectly rejected it. What you would be able to do is park some money if you genuinely felt that it was unfairly done and submit for a reclaim. In that case, if the reclaim folks tell you that your claim was verified, you get your money back, you get your original money back, and the person who did your original claim rejection ends up paying a fee for the reclaiming, right? It's just how the incentives are aligned better. That's essentially what it is. Nothing else will change. You will have insurance distributors, you will have people who verify claims, you will have an entity that's managing the reserve pool to make sure that it's invested in a way, but objectives of each of them will be different. Objectives of each of them will be aligned with the contract that you've done with the insurance agency, and there will not be pervasive incentives inside itself. Right? So that's where the system is different. It's not like people are going to change. The work is going to be there. Just how they get paid for it and how do they get valued for it will be different. And said, so you made us understand BTC, but is ETH any different? Oh, ETH could not be more different than BTC. Uttam, you were saying something?
Yeah, I was about to say probably you can expand on how BTC, ETH, Solana, Matic, how are they different? Why there are so many currencies? It will make them understand everything.
Correct. So I said that cryptocurrencies are essentially something that you want to track on like a blockchain, right? And that something should ideally add some value, and as a result, that should be valuable. Let's just try and understand very quickly what value BTC adds. The value BTC adds is trust. This is literally what BTC is, because a lot of people accept it, and because it is fixed, and because there is a large number of miners trying to make sure that the BTC blockchain is protected and verifiable, the value BTC adds is trust. That's basically it, nothing else. And that's actually also the only value that gold adds. That's why a lot of people equate BTC to gold, right? Literally, the only value that gold adds is trust. You can take gold, give it to anyone, everyone will accept it. Gold itself is basically worthless. Like it has very limited utility of itself, apart from the fact that somehow a lot of humans find it valuable. And that's the value of gold. That's similarly what the value that BTC adds. Now, the value of ETH is actually very different. ETH is the cryptocurrency that is used to power or fuel the Ethereum blockchain. And the purpose of the Ethereum blockchain, just like how the purpose of BTC is to give trust, the purpose of the Ethereum blockchain is to give compute, which means that you can ad hoc do computations using a world supercomputer, and you pay to access compute power with ETH. That's what it is. So the reason why ETH becomes more and more valuable is because more and more computes will need to happen on the ETH network, and more of that compute will require some portion of ETH. The same or similar is actually also true for Sol. The same is also true for Matic. All of these are utility tokens, as they call it, and their utility is to enable and pay for transaction fees of the network, and the network is trying to solve for compute in some way, shape, form, or the other. That's the value of that token. But let's say there are actually different values for other tokens. For example, the value of the Aave token or the compound token is the rights that it gives you in governance of Aave or compound. There's literally no other value. Of course, there is some value in terms of capturing the interest that you have, but the reason why it's become so valuable is because you now have the rights to govern Aave or compound or ETH, and that's how governance tokens are valuable. So what you would really want to understand, Ansh, when you are trying to understand whether a particular token is at price X, whether it will be more valuable or less valuable, the fundamental analysis of tokens is actually to try and understand why will people want it more? Why will demand for it increase? And if that demand is justifiable and supply is fixed or predictable, you should be then able to value a particular token. That's the difference. Crypto is crashing at this time. So should we invest in crypto? Should we invest in crypto is wise? Which coin should we invest in? I get asked this question so many times. So Vivek, here is my answer. If you are ever investing, you should be investing for the longer run. You should be investing systematically and consistently. And you should be investing because you believe in it. These are the three core rules of investing in anything, whether it be investing in real estate, gold, equity, stock, commodity, oil, mutual funds, or crypto. You can replace crypto in that entire question with equities or gold or oil, and basically the answer would be still the same. Invest for the longer run. Invest only in things that you believe in, and invest consistently again and again. The only way you can create real wealth is compounding and time. Everything else and timing the market is a big myth. And of course, I really can't tell you which coin to buy. That's purely your choice. Okay, Rohan. So this is actually a very interesting question as well. Is there any limit to amount of crypto we can buy in India? Is there an LRS? And is it treated like a foreign asset? So what I can tell you for sure is, as per the RBI, crypto is not a foreign asset. It is not a foreign currency. Because it is not a foreign currency, very clearly, it does not fall under FEMA regulations. Today, it also does not fall under LRS regulations as well. And really, actually, there is no limit to the amount of crypto that you can buy in India. And the reason why it does not fall under any of these regulations is because of how virtual digital assets have been defined. And that's actually the problem as well, if you ask me, Rohan. And I really empathize a lot with the regulators as such. crypto is not a currency, it's not an asset, it's not a good, it's not a service, yet somehow it is all of these together as well. And that's why the job becomes really difficult, right? Because if it's not a currency but acts like a currency, should FEMA be allowed? It's not a security but acts like a security, should SEBI be governing it? It's not an exchange of service, but yet it in a lot of cases is. So how should you apply GST to it, and what amount should get applied? These are tough questions, and answers to these will only come over time as more and more use cases of crypto emerge and become popular. Today, the primary use case, and that's what the government is seeing, the primary use case is essentially exchange, trading, and speculation, which is why they've come up with taxes and laws around exchange, trading, and speculation. It is up to us as this group to actually end up using crypto for the purpose that is defined for creating value, capturing value, distributing value, right? As we do more and more of that, we should be able to push the envelope and get our institutions to move from their current position of power to a new position of power. And that's what I was talking about, right? Like it's us as a society that needs to do this push. Institutions do not inherently do it by themselves. Yeah, then there is Devesh. While the whole idea behind Web3 is decentralized on platform like OpenSea and Mudrex, once again, take power and say, Devesh, that's extremely true. And I could not more agree with it. Mudrex, for all practical purposes, today acts like a Web2 company and not a Web3 company. And the reason why we are doing it today is because we think that there are two challenges in the world of crypto. The one part is, of course, the technology. Building out products core on Web3 is difficult. But the other part of it is that actually the user interface is also very complicated. It's very difficult and it's difficult to solve. Interfacing the Web3 user face with the banking system and traditional finance system is a very difficult ask to solve for. And that's why what we're doing is we've broken down the problem, at least at Mudrex, where our main product, Mudrex.com, works and acts like a Web2 company where we are trying to give people access to more and more of crypto. We are doing and trying to solve for the job of access first. In parallel, there is a small team inside of Mudrex that's working on core Web3. We've got a product or a community called as mesh.finance. It's creating multiple products on Web3 in a completely decentralized way. And our flagship product today is Jedi Swap. For those of you who don't know, Jedi Swap was the most contributed and top sort of funded project on Gitcoin. We've received grants from Starkware and so on and so forth as well. So we are pushing the envelope forward on both fronts. It's just that it's not happening on the same product. It's happening in parallel. And once we think that there is enough overlap and easy for us to move, we will move to a place where there is more ownership and more ownership by you and not on the platform. Owning your token is a cost. We really don't want to do it. We have to do it because that's the best user experience today. We are solving for this user experience. It will take time. That's the reality of it. Is POS consensus truly decided? Does it defeat the movement perspective? The reality is that POS consensus mechanisms can be truly decentralized. It depends on validators and network owners and nodes. So it is how it's implemented that's the difference, right? For that matter, proof of work is also not truly decentralized if a lot of miners have mining power. And we've seen this happen a lot of times on the BCH network. If you look at the BCH network, there have been 51% attacks on it numerous times. And BCH is a proof of work network. So POS is as decentralized as POW. The only difference is that how and how many people and how many folks participate in the decentralization becomes important. Is this really a let's move out. BTC is the highest valued crypto. We have seen some better tech cryptos post BTC. Key factor to crypto's value is in its adoption, and a better tech would eventually reduce BTC adoption. Does it not mean that we would always bid on a crypto, but an advancement of tech would devalue it? That's actually not true, Sumit. BTC is not valued because it has better tech. I mean, BTC has great tech. but it is not valued because it has better tech. It is valued because of the trust that people put in BTC. That's why it's valued. Tech will be a factor, but network and the value that the core token adds will be a bigger factor as well. Like, for example, arguably, what the folks are doing on Solana might be a better implementation of a smart contract platform than ETH, purely from a tech perspective. But ETH is way more valuable because of the network, because of the compute power, and because of the number of people building on top. That adds fungibility, and that is very, very important as well in terms of value that ETH adds. So tech will not necessarily solve for everything. Mel is saying, with high gas fees for transaction right now, how do you think it will take? How long do you think it will take for products to be adopted for women day-to-day life? Question 2. Also, there are too many fake currencies and scams. How can these issues be regulated and provided safety to the end consumer and buyer? Great question. And let me take up both. Yes, gas is a problem. And that problem is inherently how ETH is designed. And ETH and the Ethereum protocol and the Ethereum tech folks are actively working on solving that problem by moving ETH to Beacon Chain and by moving ETH to a more scalable effort and by building more and more and more blockchains on top. The reality is that these technological advancements are hard problems, like really hard problems. And they will take time, like most hard problems do. But once solved, they scale infinitely. So it will take time. We are still very early. People should recognize that it's only been about 12, 13 years since the Bitcoin white paper came out. It's been less than 10 years since ETH came out in itself. And it takes ages to build a company. Like Amazon is 25 years old. Google is more than 20 years old. So it takes time, guys. Hard problems take time. But once solved, they scale very, very well. So there are too many fake currencies and scams. How can these issues be regulated and provided safety? This is actually a very genuine problem, Benil. And that's why I highly recommend not buying something that you don't really understand. As I said before, if you want to invest, do it regularly, do it for the longer run, and do only things that you believe in. If there is not something that you believe in, please don't put in your money in it. You're likely to get scammed. This is not a cryptocurrency problem. Scams have been around as long as money has been around. So again, general piece of advice, please don't put in money in anything that you don't believe in.
Edul, a follow-up question there itself is, how can someone protect themselves from incidents like what happened with Terra?
Well, let's actually talk about Terra since we are on that topic, right? What happened with Terra are two very different things. One part is that the yields that Terra was giving was incredibly large. And that yield itself got repackaged and resold to a lot of people without the risks of it being very clear. And that last part is important. It's not that people put in money. It's okay if they put in money had they known the risk. The risk of it was not clearly explained and understood. And that actually is the problem. And the onus of solving for communication will necessarily lie with platforms that are trying to distribute this. Right? Otherwise, Ponzi schemes will continue to come and happen. And that is like a key human problem to solve. It's like there's not really technology or blockchain that can do something about it. It's just repackaged and sold to you in a poor way. Then it becomes difficult to solve. And as a result, more and more trust will need to be built around these things. More and more clarity of why are you investing, where are you investing, how much should you invest, and like a risk assessment of this will become really, really important. And platforms that do this well will end up getting more and more users than platforms who don't. That as such is reality. Yeah, then Deepak is saying volatility and stability have been a challenge for crypto and blockchain adoption. Regulatory clarity is another angle to this. What is your take? Well, volatility is an inherent part of publicly traded crypto tokens. And it's not like crypto is volatile. I mean, crypto, of course, is volatile, but it's not like the most volatile thing in the world. The stock of Tesla is more volatile than BTC is. So volatility and stability are challenges for crypto and blockchain, of course. And they are a consequence of the nascent stage in which the product is. And as a result, it's not so useful for everyone, but it is useful for the early adopters who believe in it or wanting to take the risks and invest in it for the longer. Then I was saying, how do we decide to invest in Bitcoin? The equity market, we can do a technical fundamental analysis. How do we go to the world of Bitcoin? That's actually very interesting, Devas. Technical and fundamental analysis do help you in making a decision, but it's not like they are always right. Otherwise, everyone would be millionaires. Just like how you use technical and fundamental analysis to create a view and try and understand whether the product is underpriced or overpriced, and as a result decide to buy and sell. The reality is that you would have to take a view very similarly to it. And just like how fundamental and technical analysis requires you to put in the effort to do this understanding, you'll have to do a very similar thing with tokens that you choose to pursue. I'm assuming when you said Bitcoins, you generally mentioned cryptocurrencies and not Bitcoin in itself. So you will have to unfortunately do your research. That reality is the only reality that exists. And of course, products like Mudrex over there exist to help you reduce the amount of research that you need to do. We've created these products called as coin sets, which are coin baskets, where we do a lot of the research. We have these broad themes that you can invest in. So as long as you believe in the theme, you can invest in those products. For example, if you believe in crypto, we've got a crypto blue chip theme that you can invest in, where your money is parked in the top crypto tokens that continue to grow over time. Right? Then Amitesh says, what all things can affect crypto prices, as in case of Luna? It got completely wiped out. What is your take on future BTC, TH, and can the underlying infra, can they change? Right? So this is a question that I just answered some time back. Prices of individual tokens can be affected by a lot of things, depending on what is the value those tokens are adding. And that is difficult to assess. With products like BTC and ETH, where the value is in one case trust and in the other case compute power, that has scaled up a lot over time. With products like Luna, where the value was the Terra network, and the Terra network wasn't large enough, it was actually overvalued. And it had to come to it, and that end was inevitable as well.
Awesome. That was amazing. Like, that was intense 1.5 hours. Some of the people asked really, really good question. Like, I was not expecting. I thought everyone is just a beginner, but some of the people asked really good question. So that's amazing. Now, before I make few announcements, I would like everyone to just turn on their cameras so that we can click some pictures. You can just get your hair ready and get yourself in place. No one is going to judge you. Everyone just started like putting their hair in.
Yeah. I hope my hair is in place.
Yeah. Folks, quickly turn on your cameras. Awesome. There are multiple screens, right? So you have to keep smiling for a while. I'll just start taking a screenshot, right? Yeah. First screen, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Next screen, there are 4 screens. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I will now 3, 2, 1. You don't know in which screen you are. I'm just taking.
Have to do it more times.
3, 2, 1. We both had to continuously smile because we are in all screens.
Yeah, it reminds me of my wedding now.
Amazing. So now that brings us to the end of this intense 1.5 hours discussion and workshop on cryptocurrency. Now, what lies ahead? What lies ahead is a very fun after party and AMA on our Discord server, right? So in case you still have time and you are not hungry, join. Om is our community manager who has just dropped the link. So if you have not joined, join there. Now comes the most exciting part. Some of you might be waiting for it, right? So the winner of last session's challenge is Namrata Bemane. Namrata, if you are here in the session, raise your hand right? Our team will contact you to give you the gift. So you are the lucky one. You wrote a really, really good thread on Twitter, right? Like someone will share the thread on Discord. You guys can take inspiration. Now, what I want from all of you guys, you learned a lot today, right? Summarize it, put that into a thread and LinkedIn post. Tag Edul, tag Mudrex, tag GrowthSchool, right? We would love to like push it, right? Like more and more people talking about it, educating others, and like getting involved in this like ecosystem is important, right? That is what we are trying to encourage. Make sure you do that, and you could be the key one.
By the way, just one small thing, guys. We are actually looking for great content folks inside of Mudrex to come in and contribute for us. So please do post your Twitter threads. Please do tweet and share. If we really like you, we'll reach out to you and we'll get you on board onto Mudrex as well.
Here you go. Here you go.
We are hiring.
Right. That's amazing. That's amazing. Right, guys? So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you, Edul, for doing this. Thank you for such an insightful session, right?
My pleasure, Uttam.
Right. Let me just turn on the chat so that people can thank and give you the feedback real time. Folks, tell in the chat how was the session, thank him, and then we'll wrap and go for the after party on Discord server. You can see the chat. You can see the chat, Edul.
Thank you, guys.
And this was not just the audience. There was audience on YouTube as well who was listening. So a lot of people loved it.
Guys, so my email address is edul@mudrex.com. If you need anything, please feel free to reach out. I will share the presentation with Uttam and the team, and yeah, we can take it ahead. Thanks a lot for all those kind words.
Amazing. All right. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Folks, I'll just turn off the chat. Thank you for such a great response and being such a lovely audience. You guys are amazing, right? Om will just drop the link again. Make sure you join for the after party if you have time, right? It will be fun. Yesterday, a lot of people joined in and Om like had lovely conversation with all of them. So I've turned off the chat. There are 250 people, odd people are still on the call. Om, you can drop the link. People can join and also drop that link on YouTube so everyone can join. And we'll meet on Wednesday with another insightful workshop, right? And a lot of people had questions around NFTs and DApps, all of that. Stick around for all 6 weeks. We will make sure that you learn almost everything about Web3, not in complete depth, but because the intent is to just make you aware and like understand the potential and basics. So just stick around for 6 weeks. It will be a fun ride, and I will keep meeting you in every session. All right. Bye-bye. See you on Discord.